Isaiah chapter 11, verse 13. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Atha Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rawchaa Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. And pretty much this lesson is coming by way of some videos I was watching earlier. I was actually watching Elder Malcolm, a couple of his videos that he had done. And this one particular video came up on the feed as I was watching his, and interesting title, so I clicked on it, and this was the video here, which I put the 3 videos in the description box. It says how Hispanics helped slaves escape to Mexico on the Underground Railroad. Because you always hear about the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman, and slaves, going up to the north, escaping slavery, becoming free, which we really know the backstory behind that. But what you don't hear about is the Underground Railroad going down into Mexico. And pretty much you had Jakes that were enslaved in Texas, Louisiana, those areas like that, that instead of trying to shoot all the way up to the north, which a lot of them did, they chose the shorter route to go down into Mexico because there was safe haven in Mexico for them. And even some of those Edomites would bring slave patrols with them to try to recapture these Jakes that went into Mexico, and you would have the Issacharites down there standing up, defending Jake. Then you had the so-called Seminole Indians, which are the tribe of Reuben, that were in those regions because of the Trail of Tears. They were brought from Florida and those areas over there all the way over to, to that area, what they call the Trail of Tears. And because they were brown skinned, they were being captured by Esau and sold into slavery, so they fled down there also for refuge. So there's a particular town called Nacimiento de los Negros or something like that, which is the birth of the blacks. And it also speaks about the Muskogee, I think, Muskogos in Spanish, I believe it is. And that was a thriving, community of Israelites of the tribes of Reuben, Judah, and Issachar. They intermingle with each other, and what the Mexican government did, because they saw that Reuben was a warrior tribe, they said, look, if you defend our northern borders, you can become citizens and you could be free here. They gave them, I forget how many acres of land, 120,000 acres of land or something like that, or more. I forget exactly the number. I think it was 120,000. And pretty much, they settled down there. So you have Issachar, you have Judah, and you have Reuben that's down there, co-mingling together in unity, no fights, no fuss. And I was looking for a title, and the Spirit tapped me on the shoulder with this one here: Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. And this is perfect because this is both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom coming back together, not in the normal way of things, because you've had, all of the tribes have had beef with each other, even to this very day. There's racism coming from the so-called Latin tribes and the so-called Native American Indian tribes to the so-called Negro tribes, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. Shit, there's racial things going on between so-called Latin tribes and so on and so forth. So That's nothing new. But what the Lord is doing is, as he's building up, closing up the breaches and building up the tabernacles of David, he's bringing back the tribes together. So there's a rich history of that, which is not really known down in Mexico, which they celebrate so-called Juneteenth down there, which we know what that's about. We know that the Emancipation Proclamation really didn't free the slaves. They really handed them over to the northern slave owners, under these different corporations. But it's appeared, they appeared to have a better life, so to speak, because they were actually paid for their wages or for their labor. So when you get a chance, you can watch these videos. I might play a little bit of it, depending. I don't think I'll get a strike because it's from Fox, but just in case, it's fair use, fair use, fair use. This is just for educational purposes. I'm not making any money off of this video. It's just for educational purposes and to share information. So I'm going to try to play a little bit of this and then take it from there. And I have 2 other videos also, which I'm not going to play. You can watch them at your leisure. This one here is Juneteenth in Mexico. They were getting down here also, bringing out a lot of information, and just keep in mind, they don't really know the scriptures, so they're going to say stuff from time to time that is not scriptural, but the point is that the Lord is bringing the tribes together. All right. And then you have this one here, Juneteenth in Mexico, the Freedom Connection. She goes into a lot of good history here. Beautiful. I mean, when she gets down to the part where there's no, they don't identify anybody down there. Everyone is equal there. All peoples are equal, and how beautiful that. But she doesn't know the truth. She's just going up based off of what she thinks is acceptable and should be acceptable. So when you get a chance, you go watch that. Oh, check this out. This one, Black Seminoles, Los Negros Mascogos. This is Muskogees down in Mexico. And as you watch one video, they're going to keep, bringing out more and more of the same topic. So let's play a little bit of this and let's get into it. I don't really have that many scriptures. I just have one particular one that I wanted to go into, and we'll take it, from there. As a matter of fact, I read this scripture that the brother put up. It says, Jeremiah 50:33, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. It's beautiful because we're actually seeing this happening here in the so-called Americas. In America, Babylon the Great, but also in the neighboring areas too. It says, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go, right? And this is why you had the slave owners chasing Jake, going into Mexican territory, trying to take Jake back into slavery. But, the Issacharites wasn't having that. They were fighting, they were helping Jake. So these individuals that talk about that all the, Latin tribes are racist against, the so-called Negroes, that's bullshit. You have your, percentages, or you have your, ones that are, but not all of them, not all of them. That's just like trying to put everyone in one box and trying to say that everybody's like that, and that's not the case. You've had intimate, look at when you go into the 60s, 70s, the whole revolutionary movement, that was Judah, that was Ephraim, that was, Gad, and other tribes, coming together, for that purpose, Salaki, man. This guy upstairs fucking smoking cigarettes. That shit's coming right down. I hate that smell. Anyways, let's get into it.
Hispanic Heritage Month, we are highlighting the history of Latinos and their part in history, helping blacks escape slavery. Boom. Fox 26's Dominic Keith.
See, but then you hear individuals like Tariq Nasheed and all the Latins, they're racist against blacks, and they owe us this, they owe us that. Well, what about this? What about instant? Oh, that's just a he'll probably chalk that up as just one incident. No, this is not just one incident. It's ignorance what it is.
In Galveston with the story.
Typically, when we think of the history of slavery here in Texas, we think of Juneteenth in Galveston. But I'm speaking with a couple of historians today who say we need to think of that history even further south, because decades before Juneteenth, Hispanics were helping enslaved blacks escape to Mexico.
See? They were helping Jake escape to Mexico and defending them down there. Why? Because this was the Lord setting the stage up for the tribes to come together. See, the only reason why we fell was because we committed we committed an infraction against the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments, and the Lord punished us. You know, this is the reason why. These devils are not stronger than us. But the problem is the Lord took that power from us. He took that hedge away from us. That's why we fell as a nation. You know? That's why even when you go to the book of Judith, Achor, which was an Ammonite, what did he say? He said, you know, that if these people are good with their power, you know, you have a problem. You're not going to be able to take them. But if there's an infraction and they're done something to upset their power, that's when you can get them.
Mexican government welcomed fugitive slaves.
Documents dating back beyond the 1800s here in the Galveston and Texas History Center that historians Samuel Collins III and Dr. Juan Galvan are showing me give a new outlook on the Underground Railroad, which most equate to the system that helped slaves escape north to freedom.
We often think about Canada, but enslaved people in Texas actually ran south to Mexico because Mexico had outlawed slavery.
Although not everyone describes the help Hispanics gave as work on the railroad.
Because when you say Underground Railroad, that implies a network as sophisticated as the one to Canada.
But Dr. Galvan says research shows Hispanic abolitionists were well organized, as many came together to help thousands of enslaved blacks in Texas make it to freedom in Mexico.
There were many marriages between Mexican men and African American enslaved women.
Part of the story is that people were not just waiting to be rescued.
Collins says some slaves saved for years to pay to be taken to Mexico. When Texas was still Mexican territory, it was illegal to have slaves here, so slave owners began drafting contracts like this. The papers would claim the people listed, including some as young as 3 years old, agreed to work for them for life.
For the term of 99 years to learn the art and mystery of farming and planting.
So friends to the south stepped in.
In 1857,
You see how these devils put that? They see how they frame their words? You know, that in other words, you want to be enslaved, but they're saying that, you know, to learn the arts of farming and agriculture. You know, like if they had a choice. Ooh, you fucking devils. Ooh, you motherfuckers, man.
and the government of Mexico amends the constitution now, declaring that any...
Matter of fact, let's go real quick. We're going to get back to that. No, a little bit more left. Like I said, I'm not going to really play any of the other ones. I mean, unless the spirit moves me to, but... Zechariah 11:5, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Now, you see how they put their words, you know, making it seem like, you know, it's you know, they wanted to do this. They volunteered for this. You know, they want to learn the arts of farming and agriculture. Psalms 55:20. I started at 21, main point. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. And this is exactly what they do. They go back on their words. This woman here, in her video, she said, there's no higher law than damn, I just had the word in my mind too. Dealing with these, you know, these agreements that you sign. I believe I'm not sure if she said agreement. There was another word she used for that. You know, I can't think of it right now. But, you know, I said, well, you know, outside of the law of the Most High, yeah, you know, you have those type of contracts that are supposed to be upheld. But these devils don't uphold that. You know, they don't uphold those contracts. They don't uphold those agreements. because the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Let's go to Isaiah 24:5. It says, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. You know, they don't keep covenant. You know, keeping covenant to the devil, that's not something the devil does. He doesn't honor his word. You know, he goes against his word. He's a liar from the womb to the tomb. All right.
Former slave who steps on Mexican territory now, declaring the government of Mexico amends the constitution now, declaring that any former slave who steps on Mexican territory is now a Mexican citizen and therefore a free person.
See, just stepping on there, they're a free person. You know, you don't have to go, you know, eventually, of course, you get your paperwork and all that, but you don't have to go through all this years of, you know, being in the country to become a citizen. This shows you that's the Lord opening up the heart of Issachar to accept Judah and Reuben.
Once slaves escaped to Mexico, many made good lives, including a couple of Sam Houston's former slaves.
One of them became a barber and opened a barber shop in Matamoros, Mexico. Another one became an officer in the Mexican army.
And these are just a few of the books available on the topic. The historians are encouraging you to head to the library and get to know the information for yourself. In Galveston, I'm Dominique Keith, Fox 26 News.
So you see, and like I said here, you know, Juneteenth in Mexico, like I said, these are good to watch. It goes into the history, you know, Judah and Ephraim coming together. And this is all prophecy. When you go to the book of Ezekiel 37, it speaks about, matter of fact, let's go there real quick. I was just going to go to this other precept, but let's go here real quick, Ezekiel 37. And let's just go straight to the point 15. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah. So this goes into the 12 tribes chart that we carry out there, you know, in the streets, you know, as a way to attract the attention of the Israelites so that they can inquire of the truth, you know. But prior to this, you see that there was a lot of stuff happening. The Lord was making moves, shaking things up among the tribes, bringing them back together. Now, you did have instances where the Buffalo Soldiers fought against Gad to take them down and help Esau, Gad, you know, same thing, you know. But you also had incidences where you also had the tribes coming together, working together against this devil. And that was a way the Lord bringing those cultures which they thought were different from each other together as one, because eventually in the future the Lord Yahawah would bring all the tribes back together, you know. So it's like a master strategic chess move from the Most High that he did these things, you know, in different time periods. You know, this is going back to the late 1800s into, you know, then you had the revolutionary movement, you know, where you had Judah, you had Ephraim, you had Issachar, you know, you had Gad, you had, you know, Manasseh, and all the different tribes coming together, looking at the problem, the real problem, not among themselves, but the real problem outside of themselves, being Esau, you know, and coming together with a solution. But the solution that they had didn't have the breath of the Most High in it, although the Lord was moving them to do that because he was bringing the tribes together to settle these differences. Now, all of these movements, and they didn't accomplish bringing all of the tribes together, because you still have those that are going to fight against each other. You're still going to have those that are going to be racist against each other. This is why we speak about what? The elect, which is what the scriptures speak about. So the elect among all of the 12 tribes are going to be the ones that come together in that unity, because that's going to be the first dominion. That's going to be the first part of the rulership of the kingdom of heaven, to bring back this great nation that had fallen so many years ago, but is now slowly but surely on the rise. And this is why these devils are nervous and scared, because they actually see the camaraderie. They actually see the coming together. They actually see the building, and they can't believe how close the tribes are coming to each other. So much so that when you go to different places in the world, whether you go to a restaurant or movie or whatever, and people see brothers interact with each other, they say it's so heavy that they'll say, some of them will say, man, I don't even have this among my own family. You guys have a really tight-knit family together. And it's not that we don't have problems amongst each other. We don't get mad at each other. Of course we do. But the love is there. The love is real. And people in the world see this. So the elect are going to come together. The house of David is going to come together. They're going to bond. They're not going to be looking at each other. Oh, you a Negro, or you a Hispanic, or you this. Nah, we can't vibe like that because, you know, we ain't the same people. No, because we are the same people. Even though we look different. But that's through prophecy. The Lord said that my people are like a speckled bird. So it says, moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions, which is Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. When you go back into the history, the nation of Israel was split into two after King Solomon. And that was a way of punishment from the Lord. But really what that was setting the stage for future events. Because after the Lord split the kingdom, he caused one part of the kingdom, which was the northern kingdom, to go into captivity under the Assyrians, but eventually leave from there to come over to the Americas for a later date. Just like you're playing chess and you're thinking 7, 8, 9, 10 steps and moves ahead, you know, and you say, well, I'm going to move this piece here because I'm going to use this piece later on for a checkmate. And you might not move that piece again for 20, 25 moves, 30 moves later down the road. Well, that's what the Lord did. This is why he sets things up. This is why even when the school at One West was together, it was beautiful. It was heartbreaking to see the splits. It was heartbreaking to see, you know, the king separated from the high priest, you know, and the other men, that the great men back then, you know, but there was a greater purpose for it, because eventually the Lord knew that they tried to infiltrate the school before, but the Lord knew eventually the school would be totally compromised. And that's why he set it up that way. And he removed men out of the way from that school that he knew would not be compromised. See? And what happened? In removing these men from there, they started to keep teaching, keep growing. And you can see today all of the different groups that are out here that would not have been possible if everyone was still up under the same roof. You see? You know? It says, and for the children of Israel, his companions, then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph. Goddamn, this dude a chain smoker or what? Fuck. Then, man. It says, then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph. Now, who is Joseph? Joseph is a representative, or Joseph and Ephraim are synonymous one with the other. You know, because sometimes you'll see in the scripture it speaks about Joseph, it's talking about, you know, the northern kingdom. But sometimes it'll use Ephraim. Or sometimes it'll use Jerusalem. It all depends. So take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all his and for all the house of Israel, his companions. Right. Why? Because the Lord split the nation. The Lord will bind the nation back together. And we're in the binding process. And the binding process has been going on since the 60s, 70s, you know, so on and so forth, till the present. Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 14. Then I cut asunder mine other staff, even bands. Now bands is something that binds together, holds stuff together. Right? So the Lord broke bands, right? The staff, which is rulership or power, he took it and cut it asunder. Why? That I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. And this is why now what we're going through is the rebuilding of the temple and the gathering together of, you know, the house of David. You know? And in that building of the house of David, what's happening is that the Lord is causing the differences between them to be removed out of the way. Amos 9:11, in that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, which is what? The house of David that is fallen. Why did we fall? Because after Solomon did what he did in worshiping the idols of these nations, you know, his wives and all that, concubines, and setting up the altars to them, the Lord took the kingdom and split it in, you know, not in half, but he split it into two. You know, gave three tribes to his son Rehoboam, and the other 10 tribes to Jeroboam, which was an Ephraimite that became king. And that's when the nation split into two. But now the Lord is bringing back what? The tabernacles of David, which make up all 12 tribes, not just the tribe of Judah. Because I was taught at one time, you know, by, I believe it was by High Priest Yeshaya. You know, he was the only one, I think, that taught that, if I'm not mistaken. You know, but no, all of the tribes of Israel were under King David. It wasn't until King Solomon and actually his son Rehoboam that the split came. And Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were with Judah and a handful of the other tribes, but the rest of the tribes were with Jeroboam. It says, and close up the breaches thereof. What are the breaches? These are the gaps. These are the differences. These are the things that split us apart. And this is why as you go through history, you'll see instances like this, how Hispanics helped slaves escape to Mexico on the Underground Railroad. And you'll see incidences like the revolutionary movement, where you see the so-called Negro and so-called Latino tribes and so-called Native American Indian tribes coming together for one cause, even though there was no breath in them. But now the breath is being put back in them. Why? Because the Lord is closing up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, because we were ruined. Let's look up the word ruins. Raise up his ruins. The word there is harayasah, ruin, something demolished. My people are destroyed for what? For lack of knowledge. You see? So being that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, they're what? Something demolished, ruined. The Most High is raising them back up as in the days of old. When you read Isaiah, the 61st chapter, this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful precept, because it also shows you how it's going to be in the kingdom of heaven when the Lord brings the tribes back. Now remember, this is after the 60th chapter, which speaks about the nations going into captivity. I just want to get straight to the point. 61:4, I'll just start here. And they, meaning the nations, shall build the old wastes. See? Because they're going to build the kingdom. They shall raise up the former desolations. Now, it's happening right now spiritually by the Lord building a spiritual temple, the body of Yahawashi, and bringing the tribes back together with no differences. So if you that old ninja and you ain't, you know, change, and you're not part of the elect, you're not going to be a part of this. It says, and they shall repair the waste cities. That's why the Lord is setting it up now. This is talking about physically, but spiritually the Lord is doing it now with the building up of the tabernacles of David. The desolation of many generations, because it was a long time that we had fallen. We've been in this case for a long time, but now the building of it is coming back together. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the aliens shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. This is in the kingdom of heaven. This is talking about the actual nations, you know. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our power. Why? Because we're going to be teaching the other nations how to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. Because they're not going to be doing whatever the hell they want to do. You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, of the nations, because we're going to get their riches, because those riches really belong to us. And in their glory shall you boast yourselves. So we're going to be living it up, and we're going to be boastful against them. For your shame you shall have double, and for confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Right, because we're going to get back everything, and then some. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. All right. So going back to Ezekiel, when the two sticks, one for Judah, one for Ephraim, were created, then the Lord said, and join them one to another into one stick. This is why you see the 12 tribes sign out there when we go out to speak. And they shall become one in thine hand. That's why you see the plank out there, Judah all the way down to Issachar. The only one that's in order is Judah. Then you have Benjamin and Levi, because that's the southern kingdom. And then you have Zebulon, you know, all the way down to Issachar. That's not in any particular order, because if anything, Ephraim would have been number 4. You know, but it's just a depiction of the 12 tribes coming back together and who they are today, so that when Jake look at it, they can identify with themselves and ask about that sign, because that is a very good conversation piece, and it's good to, you know, to ask. Like yesterday at the, you know, when I was at the park, I was sitting down and you had this individual from the Latin tribes that sat down, but I perceived he was being mischievous. You know, that's why I really didn't, you know, he was agitating my spirit. Like I felt like he was being, you know, like he was not being genuine. Like he was just doing that, you know, to be a demon. And that's why I said what I said. And sure enough, he got up and left. You know, the spirit was on me to go into the times that are coming. And guess what? He's held responsible for everything he heard, because if he would have been sincere, he would have, hey, can I ask you a question? And I would have obliged him. Sure. You know, what do you want to know? And then that could have opened up a dialogue, you know? So it says, join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these? Say unto them, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows, and will put them, who's doing this? Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. And I will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in thine hand. So who's bringing the tribes together? Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi is bringing the tribes together. And this is why all of these little things that happened throughout the years of confederacies bringing tribes together, even though they didn't know for what purpose, but they were defending each other, was for this main purpose. Because eventually in the future, the Lord will bring the tribes back together. You know? So there was a lot of instances of this, you know? Let me read this precept. Psalms 113:7. He raises up the poor out of the dust and lifteth the needy out of the dunghill. Right. And we've been lifted out of the dunghill. It says that he may set him with princes and even with the princes of his people. Yeah, because we're going to be set into power underneath Yahawashi, Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi. Because the kingdom is Yahawashi's, and we're joint heirs with him. So we're being prepared right now to be the future rulers. Although to the world it seems ridiculous because we're still in this low state. You know, we don't really have any foothold in this world, but that's all right, because the Lord is going to give us a kingdom. Yahawashi said, no, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven. You know, so that's what we're waiting for. And when you brothers get a chance, you know, you could read 2nd Ezra 13, dealing with the peaceable multitude and how they're going to come back together, and how the 10 tribes, you know, will come back together, you know, and at the end, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi will be brought over here, which we saw that happen, so that they can be joined together. And this is a beautiful, beautiful example of that. You know, how his so-called Hispanics helped slaves escape to Mexico on the Underground Railroad. You know, that is, you know, a beautiful example of that, how the tribes are coming back together. That's the peaceable multitude. All 12 tribes coming back together. You know, so with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.